that will come between the transition period we're about to face. And I must say that when we talk about this transition period, we are not talking about so many years away. We are talking about a period that had almost started. And that is why more effort is being concentrated on planning, more effort is being concentrated on sharpening up policies, more effort is being concentrated on making sure that we not only simply play to gallery, we get into constructive and substantive development of policies that will reduce the shock from our citizens as the situation unfolds.
A model is offered by the host governor, Dr. Emmanuel Oduan's Delta Beyond Oil initiative, which is already exploring alternatives to oil.
Our agriculture program is driven by a combination of our strategic partnership with big agro-based companies like Obasanjo Farms, and also by our big push strategy of setting up of agro-based processing facilities in fish mills and cassava pellets. These processing facilities are in collaboration with some private investors and the Farmers Association. We are also giving support to our farmers in terms of inputs, subsidies, and by deliberately building infrastructure like roads to farming communities to ease access to markets and movement of their produce. Our industrial program is anchored on setting up special economic zones and construction of industrial parks.
But perhaps the industrialization alternative can best be explained by the president of Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who is represented by his chief operating officer.
We must really begin to use the petroleum resource to drive industrialization. We must industrialize this country on a fast track. Why? Because it's only with industrialization that you do value addition to various raw materials that we produce in the economy. And anytime you import, you are exporting jobs. So if you manufacture here, you create jobs, you conserve foreign exchange.
The steady reduction of the industrialized world's dependence on oil, coupled with its discovery in several other countries around the world, portends a frightening prospect for Nigeria. A stitch in time will save more than 9. Charles Eruka for Channels Television News.
Well, we now go live to Asaba, the Delta State capital, for an exclusive interview with the governor of the state, Dr. Emmanuel Oduaron.
Thank you, Bimbo. We're live in Asaba with the governor of Delta State, Dr. Emmanuel Oduaron. You're welcome to News at 10.
Thank you very much, Kayode.
First,
welcome to Asaba.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. First, we have more than 70 members of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. It's the 9th conference of the Guild. And this is 2013, not 2015. So we wonder, what is the interest of the governor in hosting this year's conference?
Well, again, let me welcome you to Asaba. I was interested in hosting this conference when I got to know where they were going to discuss, and that had to do with Nigeria beyond oil. For those who have been following our activities, you know that we'll be very, very passionate about developing an economy for the state looking beyond oil. So for us, we believe that this conference will help us at least to bring to the consciousness of Nigerians what we have been talking about in the last 6 years. That is developing an economy that is looking outside or beyond oil. We do hope that as the Nigerian economy also grows, we also look beyond oil.
Okay, Your Excellency, a lot of people will say that is a brilliant idea that you've got there. But at the same time, there are cynics who will say that it sounds more like rhetoric or cliche. What does it really mean if you have to break it down? What does it really mean for you when you say Delta beyond oil?
Well, it simply means the fact that we as a state, we acknowledge the fact that we have oil and we are getting some money from oil. But we also acknowledge the fact that the economy that is almost entirely dependent on oil, over 90% dependent on oil, is not a sustainable economy. Because the oil itself is a finite commodity. It has its challenges of price, challenges of environmental pollution, challenges of the oil depleting. And so what we are doing, what we simply mean by Delta Beyond Oil, is to use the fund we are getting from oil now to develop other areas of the economy, especially agriculture, tourism, solid minerals, to deal with issues of security, to deal with issues of infrastructure development, and to deal with issues of human capital development. These are ingredients that are necessary to develop other areas of the economy.
Now, you've been talking about Delta Beyond Oil, at least I'm aware, in the last year or two, possibly
beyond that.
Beyond that,
yes,
so
yes.
that's good. Now, having said that, what is it you're doing in tangible terms in Delta State that you can point to as integrated approach to development in other sectors?
Well, to put it in proper perspective and historical perspective too, there was a time this country did not have oil, and the economy did not depend on oil. In fact, at the time, oil just accounted for about 1.46% of the economy. But now it's the other way around. It's accounting for over 90%. And what happened? At that time, it was mainly agriculture. And most of the factories, most of the industries we had then were dependent on agriculture. The textile factories, or whatever factory, name it, the timber factories, they all dependent on agriculture. And also, it was also sustainable. It was a sustainable economy. But now that oil has come in, we now said, look, instead of depending entirely on oil, I grew up in a village where there was no oil. All we had was agriculture. I used to go to farm early in the morning before going to school. But then we were sure that we had breakfast, we had lunch, we had dinner. Good meal. And beyond that, my grandmother used to sell the remaining commodity, and of course for us to make money. But that is not happening now because everybody's attention is now drawn to oil. Secondly, the oil has also polluted the environment, such that even if the people want to farm, it will be difficult for them to farm. So in our approach, how do we move forward from there? We are saying that, look, or we are our activities are geared towards ensuring that we change the mental state of our people. First of all, let them know that the economy cannot be sustainable with oil alone. Now, we also try to attract investments in other areas of the economy apart from oil, especially in the area of agriculture. But in order to attract such investment, you need infrastructure. And so we have gone into constructing various infrastructure, such as power plants, in the area of transportation, airports, major highways, in the area of ICT, in the area of urbanization. These are, of course, industrial clusters. Now, these are things that are necessary and are required to attract investors. And when you attract such investors, of course, they create employment.
Okay, Excellence, let me ask now, because a lot of people in Nigeria are quite aware that our best assets will be in the number of youths that we have in Nigeria. What are you doing in the area of empowerment of the young people and as human capital development in that area? What are you doing?
Well, as for our youths, we of course, you know that we are doing so much in the area of education because an uneducated society is a society that doesn't develop. So we are doing from the primary school to the secondary school where education is free, and of course university where we have a lot of scholarship schemes, including the first class for those scholarship scheme for first class for those who get first class. And our educational approach is not just the formal education. We're also doing training youths to develop their skills. We have skill acquisition centers. In fact, there's one we are opening with UNDP very soon. Now, what is the aim behind this? We believe that not every youth can be employed by government or by even the industries. We believe that youths should also be able to do things for themselves. That is why we are very passionate about developing the skills of
So are
youth.
you giving them money for
Yes,
entrepreneurial-
after such training, you know, our microcredit scheme is very robust and very active. We try to fund them to establish small micro industries. Some are growing to small scale industries now.
Okay, a number of African countries have been said to have discovered oil now, and the United States is likely to continue to reduce the amount of our sweet crude that they are importing. What's your projection? What number of years is Delta State looking to be in a position where you're saying we're beyond oil now? In fact, we can do without oil.
Let me emphasize that it's a long distance race. It's not a 100 meters dash. What we have started. It's not something that will start with me and end with me. In fact, maybe by the time I leave, there might not be appreciable difference, because it takes quite some time to construct the projects that are required for the investors to come. Number of years. I mean, it's difficult to say, okay, 10, 5, 6 years. But I can say, and rightly so, that even now, our people are gradually looking at other areas beyond oil. And that, for me, is very key, and it's also very important. But in another 10, 20 years, I believe that we would have moved away, very far away
does Your
from oil.
Excellency believe we have 10, 20 years before we get to that point that can be called a critical stage?
Well, we have. Why not? We have. I mean, first, I'm not sure that 6 years ago, where we were 6 years ago is where we are now. We have moved. You know, we have moved, and we are still moving.
So the message for Nigerians, especially people in Delta State, is that they should look at other areas beyond oil?
They should look at, I mean, we just have to look at other areas beyond oil. We have to look at the areas of agriculture. And we are encouraging agriculture, even from the peasant farmer to the mechanized farming. It's a value chain, dealing with the peasant farmer, getting to the stage of processing and maybe packaging and exporting. It's a value chain. We are laying a lot of emphasis in that area. We're also laying a lot of emphasis on the area of tourism. Of course, you know, Delta State is a tourist destination, including medical tourism, I must emphasize. So we are looking at a lot of areas beyond oil.
Your Excellency, we will not be able to take it much further. Thank you very much for being on the News at 10. Been speaking with Dr. Emmanuel Oweta-Oduaghan, the Governor of Delta State. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Wimbo, we're back to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, the Delta State Governor, Dr. Emmanuel Oduaghan, speaking in an exclusive interview with Channels Television. Now in part two, after the break, Health Ministers says demands by joint health workers are beyond his ministry's capacity. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.